today we are talking about, you never know what kind of news you're going to wake up to. One of a surprising one that came out last night was the United States has a peace proposal ready for Ukraine and Russia. It is a multi-point. It goes to a nearly 30-point, 28-point plan for the end to the war in Ukraine. It is a fascinating piece. I'm going to break down for you. I want to know where you stand currently in this situation. We know it has been a point of contention for President Trump as he is not able to really make a whole lot of headway in this war, something he thought he could end quickly. Obviously, dealing with Vladimir Putin is a little bit different than expected. But what we've been told is that this plan has been talked to, but to the Ukrainians and to the Russians, and we don't know where they are necessarily in their point, but at least we know an envoy is on the way there to discuss this option that would have an immediate ceasefire monitored by the U.S. We would have the Donbass region. Ukraine would secede that region, which is interesting. They would actually give it over to Russia. However, they don't necessarily have to recognize it as permanent. The main thing that's very interesting, because you may go, well, that feels like a big loss for Russia, as Russia has said no land. One of the things they get in this is financial compensation to Ukraine of upwards of $100 billion from both a collective U.S. and EU fund for the lost territory and for reconstruction. So you're talking about essentially getting paid back for this land and for the damage caused in war. One of the other parts of the plan actually has the U.S.-Russia investment fund of $50 billion for Ukraine's reconstruction, co-managed by oligarchs. That is, again, another sort of fascinating move here. President Trump and his team always thinking a bit three-dimensionally, four-dimensionally, if you will, on how you could get peace in this region. There's also a lot of different plans we'll go through, including no NATO expansion for the next 20 years, including Georgia and Moldova. There's so many different things, prisoner of war exchange, a sort of a DMZ area that would be built, and a roadmap for normalized U.S.-Russia trade, something that a lot of us really would hope could happen in the near future, that you would actually have Russia kind of get back on board with the world, which would be nice for anyone who understands the global economy and how that all works. Of course, we are, you got to be supportive and look at what's going on in Ukraine, realize they've been under attack for many years now, but it doesn't mean that there is not business to be had in Russia, and there has been for decades now, since essentially the end of the Cold War.
8 wars. I've settled 8 wars. I have one to go. You know what that one is. I thought that was going to be my easy one because I have a good relationship with President Putin, but I'm a little disappointed in President Putin right now. He knows that. I thought that was going to be the easy one.
This has been a sticking point for President Trump, as he's clearly been frustrated with the lack of movement. This is a very unique plan. I've actually just read through all of it and was talking to our team. I think this is one of the smarter plans I've seen. Again, thinking a bit different. It's not just like these guarantee who's the winner, who's the loser here. Both of them kind of come back with something, including over $150 billion to Ukraine. So understand that that is a no small amount for not only rebuilding, but for also seceding some of their land. The control of the Donbass region, which we know has been something that I'm very curious what we'll hear a response at from Zelensky, because, of course, giving up land has not been something they have wanted to do, understandably. But what would that look like? There would also be Ukraine would adopt a permanent neutral status, foregoing NATO membership indefinitely. No NATO expansion, like I said, eastward for 20 years. There's a ton of other little things in here. It's not little, but things that maybe are of less significance to our audience. One that is actually fascinating. If you've been on the side of going, well, I've heard about Christian persecution in Ukraine and that they have issues with the Christian churches there and that they've been able to operate. One of the talking points is autonomy for the Russian Orthodox Church and their properties in Ukraine. So if you've had that sticking point where you've been unsure of whose side you're on, if you will, in Russia and Ukraine, this would probably eliminate that from being something that you would have a concern about, which would, again, be good for the church. And there was also a few other different things in here. I'm sure a lot of these points will be negotiated out.
I wanted to talk about what you just played from Trump. It may be relatable. There was an old doctor in England, Doc McIntosh, and he was different medical procedures, especially birthing babies. He made the statement, sometimes the easy ones are the hard ones, and sometimes the hard ones are the easy ones. And that's exactly what maybe Trump thought, that the Israeli conflict would be harder and Russian conflict would be easier, but sometimes the hard ones turn out to be the easy ones, and the easy ones turn out to be the hard ones. Thank you, Doc McIntosh, and thank you for all y'all are doing.
I'm looking at this new plan, and I'm actually kind of excited to hear about what Zelensky may do with this. Maybe there's some of the points they want to negotiate out, but it's very interesting. And again, provides a lot of support for Ukraine, gives Russia a little bit of what they want, and maybe there's that middle spot where we can close. President Trump can come in and cause some end to this global conflict. Because look, we used to have an office. We had the ACLJ in Russia fighting for religious freedom in Russia. It was an amazing operation. The team there was great. Of course, we had to cease operations. You're not allowed to do business with Russia or Russia. We can't get money there to support that. Understandably, it's war, and it's a war that certainly America has more picked one side than the other. And look, I get that, but we've essentially divested completely. With that, I would love to see at some point in my children's lifetime, at least, for Russia to be able to reopen. One, it's a beautiful country, beautiful people who have an amazing history, a somewhat dark history, but a history nonetheless that I think we need to make sure we remember and we're able to see. I think a lot of these places, if you don't get to see them, you kind of forget they exist, and that's unfortunate over time. But I would hope over time we can get back to there.
I think that Putin is dogmatic in wanting to hold on to Ukraine because I think he made a speech before or after the invasion and claiming that his purpose was to reunite Ukraine with Russia because it was considered their foundation, their homeland, or their cradle for the whole Russian thing.
He did that big pomp and circumstance, event we all remember. Yeah, go ahead, though.
Yeah, and I believe that they took advantage of that fact when Biden was in office due to the fact of, like you said, his inability to really stand up to Putin, and he thought that he would be able to put one over on him, which he did.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that we were not able to meet or to have a conversation or a phone call with Russia for multiple years in the middle of wartime was absurd. That's not the way we need to be able to run things in America. Vladimir Putin, I'm not saying he's a good guy, certainly not. Certainly has been in some kind of dictatorship control of Russia now for many years. However, when you actually get to meet with these people, maybe things can get done. If we want global peace, which I know, obviously most of us do. I would hope you do. You have to be able to meet. Doesn't mean you have to be their best friend. Rick Riddell's come on here and said you can be a diplomat and not be their friend. Just because you're having a conversation with them across from the table actually can be stronger if you're not their friend.